Fox 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
I'm so glad you're joining me for this episode of Street Soldiers on the new Marijuana Moguls. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. In this episode, we're taking a look at the new businesses and jobs being created as the legalization of marijuana continues to sweep across the United States. Marijuana was once an illegal drug that led to the incarceration of millions of Americans, many in communities of color. But now there's money to be made at every level, often with a social justice component.
Noah and Marlena Fishman are on the leading edge of the new cannabis entrepreneurs called Cannapreneurs. The couple created Zen Barn Farms in the rolling hills of Vermont on land the Fishman family owned for years. There's a traditional Vermont-style country store for CBD products and edibles, including some with Vermont maple syrup, a thriving online business, and a commitment to sustainable farming, as well as giving a percentage of profits to social and racial justice causes.
This industry has potential to do something this country's never seen before. It can push us to do business differently. It can push us to transform our economy and transform our healthcare system.
From a small scale, definitely is the sustainability of bringing youth and people back to the land, and also finding alternative healing practices or medicines, if you will, and just the whole community aspect.
The legalization of medical marijuana with a doctor's prescription at dispensaries gave the cannabis industry a new credibility, reducing its stigma as an illicit drug in an underground economy. It also opened the door for legal recreational sales in some states. That created major investment opportunities, now generating billions of dollars, says Brad Rogers. He's the CEO of Red, White, and Bloom, one of the nation's top owner-operators of cultivation facilities and dispensaries.
When you look at the potential of what this is, that's a real economy. And this is just the beginning. All the states haven't legalized for medical and rec. And once they do on both sides, it's going to become even bigger.
Rogers says there is financial risk, but also an industry-wide awareness that they must provide opportunities for communities of color that suffered under old marijuana laws and racially targeted arrests. The ACLU found that between 2001 and 2010, there were approximately 8.2 million marijuana arrests in the United States, 88% for possession. Blacks were 3.73 times more likely to be arrested, despite roughly equal usage. The commitment to right the wrongs is real, and there's more to it, says journalist A.J. Harrington.
Expungement of convictions is absolutely has to be a part of legalization, so that people that so they don't have people that don't have something following them for the rest of their lives, especially something that's now legal.
So what are the risks and rewards? Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me for this conversation, A.J. Harrington. He's a journalist who's covered cannabis and hemp news and written more than 1,000 articles for all kinds of publications, from High Times to Forbes. A.J., great to have you with us.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
Thank you so much. Also joining us, Noah and Marlena Fishman. They are the owners of the Vermont-based wellness brand Zen Barn Farms. They're also active in social justice causes in their local community. Noah and Marlena, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is Brad Rogers. He's the CEO of Red, White, and Bloom. They are a umbrella, basically a big house of brands, one of the largest of collection of cultivation facilities and dispensaries in the United States. Brad, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. AJ, let me start with you on this, because there's such a dramatic difference now between what's happening in certain states like New York versus what's happening in California and in other places where legalization has already begun and is in various stages. Give us an overview of where things are at right now with marijuana.
Well, that's a really interesting subject because it's happening on so many levels. We're hearing talks of bills in Congress at the national level. We have states like New Jersey that have just legalized and now are trying to navigate exactly what that means. And then we have states like California, where I am, that have had recreational marijuana legalized for a few years now, and some states even longer. So there's always something going on at the different levels. And then even at the local level in California, one of the biggest issues with legalization is that local governments have the option of opting out of licensing commercial marijuana businesses. And a lot of the jurisdictions in California have done that. So that's led to um, marijuana deserts in some parts of the state where there aren't any legal options. And this really helps prop up the illicit market, which is one of the goals of legalization is getting unregulated cannabis.
And you're talking about marijuana deserts, like we talk about food deserts, healthcare deserts, that type of thing. I want to get into that a little bit more. But first, Marlena, give us an idea of Zen Barn Farms, because you guys are really taking a holistic approach to your business. It's a family business, which is a really cool thing. Tell us about what is the driving force behind you guys?
That's a great question. The driving force behind Zen Barn Farms is really community. When Noah and I met in DC, we lived in a group house together. And after having our first son, we moved to Vermont and started our first garden on our property with the community. And then from there, we had different farmers come in our property and help teach us how to grow. And then from that point, it developed into us deciding, once we opened our restaurant, Zen Barn, let's explore CBD once it became legal. And we also had our wellness studio. So it became naturally incorporated into our food, into our wellness practices. And through all that, just really involving community in each aspect of it.
And doing so much. So Noah, so you guys came from the nation's capital up to the farms of Vermont.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. I grew up in Vermont, and we're now back on my family's land where I grew up. But as soon as I was 17, I was off exploring the world. I ended up in a career in international development, working very much to go try and solve global problems, local community problems, and really came back to Vermont because I realized that I could make a much bigger impact here working in my own community and really trying to create a sustainable model for business, where business and my passions for social justice and community development really meet.
All right, we look forward to hearing a lot more about that coming up. Brad, in terms of marijuana, or what we should properly call, I guess, the cannabis industry, there's been a tremendous amount of stigma in the business community too. A lot of people were looking at it, well, this is the current version of penny stocks, or this is the current version of whatever. Tell us about your journey. How did you become such a big multi-billion-dollar business player in this arena?
So our cap right now isn't multi-billion dollars, but I have had companies that have grown to multi-billion dollars. This is our entry into the States. We're relatively new to the space, so we're only 2 years in. Some of our other peers are about 5 plus 6 years in to the legalization piece of it, where it was medical through a few states. And so we are growing like a weed. We started in Michigan, and we started RWB, Red, White, and Bloom, as a house of brands. And so, when you look at how that all became relevant to where the stigma is, it started it started in Canada. So I was one of the first licenses in Canada under a federally regulated system. And it typically starts in a medical world. And so when you start medically, and it sort of legitimizes the substance prior to it becoming rec. And so, when you get the benefits of medicinal first into a market, that really takes away the stigma. It allows for another option of pain relief, analgesic, and all the other good things that cannabis is now prescribed for by doctors. And so once that becomes a legitimate medical option, if you will, I think, a bit of a mind escape becomes another play that you're able to do without it being actually for an indication per se. So when you look at the mind escape market, alcohol has had a lock on that for 100 years, and that was taboo. And so this is, I think, right now, as we're seeing it, the end of prohibition. I mean, this is the end of prohibition for cannabis right now. So when you look at Jack Daniels 100 years ago, what did that look like? Well, here he is, right? So I think that's kind of how we're playing this out, and we're what we'll see in the very near future. I think in the next 5 or 10 years are brands that are really going to establish themselves, such as High Times, we licensed in High Times, as a matter of fact, and so we're representing them in the market. and these iconic brands are going to come out of this space in the next 5 or 10 years. And so that's also going to destigmatize. And once it gets normalized, you'll see this become a real good business.
Stay with us. There's more coming up. AJ, in terms of the misconceptions, marijuana has been demonized. There were even, people refer to some of the videos from years ago talking about what's going to happen to you if you use it. How far have we come as a society in terms of understanding it? Because this is something that a change that I think has really happened, really from the grassroots, from the streets.
I think we're getting progress has been made as far as destigmatizing cannabis, but there's still a long way to go. One of the ways that people try to remove the stigma from marijuana is by calling it cannabis. You'll hear a lot of activists, especially, insist that you use the word cannabis instead of marijuana, and that's trying to separate it from those stereotypes of stoners and lazy people, because especially when you cover this industry, there are people that work just as hard as any other sector. And so I think that's another way that people can destigmatize cannabis, when people like Brad and the people, Marlena and Noel, is that right? From Zen Bar Farms, coming and letting people know that the cannabis community is just like any other community in America. It's diverse, and it's here to stay.
In terms of explain to us, because you at Zen Bar Farms, you and your husband have a variety, and family have a whole variety of products. Can you just explain for us, like, the difference between CBD, hemp, marijuana? What are we really talking about here?
Yeah. I mean, the way I like to talk about it, it's kind of simple. I mean, the cannabis plant has hundreds of different cannabinoids in this wonderful plant, and farmers have been working to solicit different parts of those cannabinoids in different plants and create strains that are really strong with THC or CBD or other things. And so we have ability to create different products for different purposes. And then, there's a layer of legalization and sort of the rollout of that. And CBD, a handful of years ago, became legal. So there was a lot of opportunity to create CBD products, which I think a lot of people were very new to. And we found over the last few years of being in that business of primarily CBD dominant plants, that people love it because it gives you a lot of the benefits of cannabis or marijuana, but without that heavy psychoactive effect, the thing that, like, the high effect. So
right,
kind of like a lot of the medicine without the high. And CBD can be really healing for anxiety, sleep issues, can be helpful with pain relief and many, many things. We've had people come in using CBD for like a really, really wide variety of issues. And it's something you can take every day. There's no known side effects. And it doesn't have, I often say it has like a slight euphoric effect, but it doesn't get you high generally.
Marlena, there have been celebrities, singers. There have been other celebrities, female celebrities, that say this is great for all the things we go through as women with our bodies.
Right, and that's kind of the beauty of CBD and the cannabinoids. Like, we all have cannabinoids in our body, and the CBD or the cannabinoids respond to the different needs that every individual has. So that you can do CBN, which helps some people for sleep, or CBG that helps target different joints. And you'll hear some people say, oh, I've taken CBD and it's worked for like all the things that I needed to help heal or cure. And then there's other people that might say, I've taken it and it hasn't done anything. And that just comes down to the quality, because it really speaks to the unique cannabinoids in everyone's body.
And we're going to talk about that, like what's really in it. But Brad, I want to ask you, how big a game changer was it for the industry and for you as an entrepreneur when it became okay for doctors for this to be actually prescribed?
Yeah, I mean, that's the game changer, really. I mean, when you really learn what this can do and the different cannabinoids and how it works with the CB1 and CB2 receptors in your body, all this magical medical stuff. But what really broke this was, I think, the Sanjay Gupta CNN, where they were treating a little girl for the heavy neurospastic. It's called Dravet syndrome, and so that's a real game changer. And when you talk about file formats as well, you extract the cannabinoids and put it in a carrier that you ingest. And so it's not a high, it's not the psychoactive, it's the non-psychoactive part of the plant. And what we're able to do is actually extract those cannabinoids, put it in a file format where you can actually ingest it through and liver metabolized or sublingual, meaning under the tongue. And if you put that in front of a doctor, a little brown bottle with a liquid in it, say that's cannabis, and that helps neurospasticity for Dravet syndrome, for epilepsy, for malseizures, and this changes people's lives.
Brad, I want to start with you in terms of people who want to invest. What do you recommend? You know, somebody says, oh, you know what? I got a tax refund. I got a couple $1,000s. Where would you recommend that they start?
Well, I think you've got to do your homework, right? I'm not going to advocate getting into cannabis, because cannabis is just like any other stock. There's great companies and there's bad companies, and you have to do your own research. But I think what you're going to look for are
areas, in terms of areas.
Areas, yeah. So I think you're going to look for the big players that have a solid footprint in these said states that are doing good business. It's a very high margin business right now, so you're going to see a lot of growth.
What does that mean when you say high margin?
High margin means there's profitability in it, because you can grow it for
a lot of money in it. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies making a lot of money right now to be able to actually grow that. It's going to commoditize, though. This is just a plant, but it's going to commoditize. But I think as an investment perspective, you want to look at the company, you want to look at the management team, you want to look at good, strong fundamentals that they're providing. And if it's a pump and dump, which we've seen lots of, there's been a whole pile of money burned in the business for a long time now. I think what's happening in the United States, and the best part about the United States, is that you have to be fundamentally driven now, meaning that you have to show the world that you're actually a profitable, good, functioning business. And that's the best part about it, because these other emerging economy countries are all speculative. This is now empirical. You get to actually throw, here's my profit, here's my top line. And so when you're looking at investments, I urge everybody to go look at, what the company is doing, what the perspective of the company looks like. If it's more of a blue chip, if it's a speculative, look at the technology, look at who's involved.
AJ, when you look at the whole range of companies, are there certain areas in this whole cannabis marketplace that you see are things that are showing more promise than others?
Well, I'd be hesitant to give investment advice, but
I'm not asking as a journalist looking at the,
well, like Brad said, the big companies are definitely out there, and you have a proven track record. But I also think there's a lot of opportunity in some of the smaller players in the smaller state or even metropolitan markets, where a lot of people are talking about 2021 is going to be the year of mergers and acquisitions in the cannabis sector. And so, I mean, if you're in on the ground floor on a small company that has strong financials and a strong business plan, and a good product or service, whatever it is, there's a good chance that that a larger company is going to come knocking on the door. And that can be, an opportunity as well. So I think there's, like Brad said, there's opportunity all up and down the market at different levels. But like he said, you have to do your research and make sure that the people that you're willing to put your money behind are, in it for the long haul and know what they're doing. There's a lot of people that just got into cannabis. And there's a lot of people that have been doing it in legal medical markets for 20 years. So you have to know who you're working with.
Marlena, no, I want to give you the final word here, visionary. What do you think can be the benefits of society from all of this?
From a small scale, definitely is the sustainability of bringing youth and people back to the land and also finding alternative healing practices or medicines, if you will, and just the whole community aspect that's around cannabis use. If you think about it, the whole cipher, if you will,
Right.
with cannabis, it can bring people back together in a way that can be loving and just build on a community in a healing, sustainable way.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers on Marijuana Moguls. You can share it and watch it again on our Fox 5 NY YouTube page. I'm Lisa Evers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. Let's push for peace, love, and justice for all.